Hello students and welcome back to the video lecture series of software engineering. Today's topic is component level design. I am your instructor Ms. Shruti Rawal. So let us start with today's lecture. But before going into the detail what do you mean by component level design, the main thing that is recommended is that if you want to perform effective programming, or if you want to say that you are an effective programmer, then you should not waste your time in debugging, right? Searching the errors. Instead of that, you should not introduce the bug to start with, right? But how can you do this? The thing that you need to take into consideration for not introducing the bug is to efficiently design your components. In architectural level designing, we have already decided what are the components and what is the overall structure of the components, how that components will be related to each other, right? We have seen different architectural styles. Now in component level design, we are going to pick up the individual components and we are actually going to implement them, right? But we are not going to write the code. Instead of that, we are going to write the description of what that component will consist of. That description can be any tabular method, it can be graphical method, it can be text based method, it can be pseudo code, it can be an algorithm, right? So whatever component you are writing, you should write it in an efficient manner so that your bugs will not be introduced or you will have minimum bugs. Okay. Now let us study what do you mean by component level designing. I have already told you that what do you mean by component level design. But when does your component level design occur in the SDLC phase? That is actually in the designing phase and after your architectural level designing's first iteration is completed, right? Then it is the time to actually design your components. Now what is the main objective of designing these components? The main objective of component level designing is basically to transform the design model into functional software. Okay, it means that we already have the overall structure, we have the abstract view of our system. Now we want to refine our system, we want to refine the abstraction and we want to develop a software that actually the implementers, or you can say the developers, may take and only write the code, right? So we are basically transforming the design level into our functional software. So basically your component level designing can be used or they can be represented by number of ways. I have already told you, they may be graphical, they may be tabular, they may be text based, they may be pseudo code, they may be algorithm, right? Anything that can be taken and translated into source code is okay, right? You may have decision tables, you may have rule tables, you may have truth tables, you may have graphical representation. Any form of your representation of the component is fine as long as the developer can take that component and translate into the source code. So basically what does the component consist of? Yes, the components consist of your internal data structures, the local data structures as well as the global data structure. Also it consists of the interfaces through which your modules will communicate with each other and the actual algorithm that is needed for performing a particular task, right? So that are all the things that your component will actually consist of. Okay, now before designing the component level design, the first thing that you need to decide is which type of language paradigm you will choose, right? So you may choose function oriented or you may choose object oriented paradigm. Now let us study what are the basic differences between function oriented and object oriented technologies. You have already studied this in the previous semester, that what is the main difference between function oriented or object oriented. In function oriented, we know that there are a fixed set of things and you can change the operations or functions, whereas in object oriented basically there are fixed set of operations and you can change the things that are applied on that operations, right? So that is the main difference between function oriented versus object oriented. But now if you are developing a function oriented software, it will be actually something that is consisting of set of functions. So the main focus in function oriented is in the set of functions, whereas if you are developing a software which is following the object oriented design or approach, the system is viewed as collection of objects, right? So if you are developing a software that is related to real world things, then you can go for object oriented. Otherwise, if you are focusing only on the operations and the functions and you are not concerned about the real world objects, then you can go for function oriented, right? The next difference is the basic elements of function oriented are basically the functions and variables, whereas in object oriented methodology the basic elements are the objects and the methods and the data attributes of that object. The next difference is that the data in function oriented is immutable, that is you cannot change the data, you cannot change your data of your function. Okay, also the input, and if you are inputting the same input and variables in a function oriented approach, the output will be same, right? Whereas in object oriented the data is mutable, it means you can change the data as many as times as you want, right? The next thing is that data is not secure. If you are following a function oriented approach, it is not following anything like security, right? Data is accessible everywhere, there is no access modifiers. Whereas if you are following object oriented methodology, there are access modifiers like public, private, protected. Also there is a concept of class, which is basically an encapsulated thing, so you are hiding the details from the outside world. That provides you the basic level of security. So if you are developing something that requires security, you may go for object oriented methodology. Also you can see in this figure that basically in function oriented methodology, it follows a hierarchy in which the you have the global data, and that global data is accessed by the functions, right? Also the function consists of your local data, whereas in object oriented methodology you have a class concept, right? Also you are focusing on the object, right? You are focusing on the data. So you will have an object that is having attributes, that is having properties, that is having methods. Okay, so they will be communicating with each other by passing the data between each other, right? So this is the main difference between function oriented and object oriented methodology. You can go for any of them according to the usage and the analysis about your software. Now after deciding that which oriented approach, that is either I am following function oriented approach or object oriented approach, the next thing that we need to decide or we need to understand is cohesion and coupling. Now what do you mean by cohesion and what do you mean by coupling? Basically a cohesive module performs a single task requiring little interaction with other components. What do you mean by that? It means that you know that whatever software you are designing, the first thing that you will do is you will modularize the software. It means you will have number of modules that are performing different tasks. Now if you are following cohesion, it means a particular module should perform a single task and all the components, or you can say all the elements of that particular module should be interrelated. They should be dependent on each other. Their motive or their aim should be performing a single task. But that module should not be dependent on another module. That module should be working independently. Whereas if you have coupling in your software, coupling is basically an indication of the relative interdependence among the modules. It means although you have different modules, there is a possibility that the data is passed from one module to another module. It means one module is dependent on another module. So that interdependency is known as coupling. Now let us more understand what do you mean by cohesion and coupling. So here you can see you have module 1, also you have module 2. In module 1 there are two elements which module 1 consists, that is A and B, and you have a component in module 2, that is C. Okay. Now what do you mean by cohesion? Cohesion means the dependency between intra-module, that is A and B dependent on each other, or how are they tightly coupled inside that particular module, how are they tightly related to each other for performing a single task. That is known as cohesion. For example, if you have a module 1 in which you have two components as shown in example A and B, which are totally unrelated to each other, then you may say that that is not a high cohesion, that is a low cohesion, right? Whereas if the components of module 1 and the components of module 2 are interdependent on each other, it means you are having more coupling. So if you want to develop a good quality software, the rule is that you must have high cohesion and low coupling. So the interdependence inside the elements of the module must be higher, but the interdependence between the module, that is intermodule, should be lower. So that is the rule for developing a good quality software, right? Now we will see what are the different types of cohesion and what are the different types of coupling. So the first thing that we will see is different types of cohesion. The first cohesion is functional cohesion. Now what do you mean by functional cohesion? This is a very basic type of cohesion. It means that all the elements inside the module which is having functional cohesion, they are basically performing a single task. Okay, then you can say that your module is having functional cohesion. For example, if you have a module in which all the functions are related to calculating the employee payroll, okay, or for example, if you are having a module in which all the functions are related to calculating the salary of an employee, it means that all the functions are related to each other, they are logically related, they are sequentially related, they are related to the data, and they are actually performing a single task. It means they are performing a single function. So they are said to be having functional cohesion. That is a very good type of cohesion to incorporate in your system. The next type of cohesion is sequential cohesion. Now what do you mean by sequential cohesion? Sequential cohesion is a type of cohesion inside a module if you have one element which is having some data output, and that data output is being used as an input for some another element, right? So that means it is following a logical sequence in which data from one element is going to data of another element, right, as an input. That is known as sequential cohesion. Well, if you have a transaction processing system and the sequence of functions is you are getting the input, you are validating the input, and you are sorting that input that you have currently validated. So basically that is a sequential cohesion. Okay, so the next type of cohesion is communicational cohesion. Now what do you mean by communicational cohesion? A communicational cohesion is a cohesion in which if you have a module and all the components of that modules are basically modifying or they are using the same data structure. Okay, so for example, if you are applying any algorithm in which there is a stack, and if you are applying the methods like push, pop, peep, change, right? So they all are the operations that you are performing on a stack. Similarly, if you are applying the operations like insertion, deletion, or searching in an array, then that sort of cohesion is known as communicational cohesion. Type of cohesion is procedural cohesion. Now what do you mean by procedural cohesion? If you have a module and if you have set of functions in that module which are part of some procedure, it means if there is an algorithm and there are sequence of steps and that set of functions are basically executing that sequence of steps for achieving an objective or for achieving the required task by completing that algorithm, then it is known as cohesion. For example, if you are having a program which is for decoding any message, then that algorithm is known as procedural cohesion. Next is if you are applying an algorithm or if you are applying some logic. For example, if you are checking the file permission before using it, then that sort of sequence is also known as procedural cohesion. Okay, the type of cohesion is temporal cohesion. Now what do you mean by temporal cohesion? Temporal cohesion is basically a cohesion in which all the set of functions that are included in your module happens at a particular set of time. So they are related to time. For example, let us take a real life example in which if you are brushing your teeth, you are switching off your TV, you are going to bed, right? So all these three activities actually occurs at the same time, that is night, right? So that are related to the time. So if in programming, if you have set of functions which are happening at a particular time, then you can say that that module is having temporal cohesion. So all the activities, or you can say all the functions which are related to startup, shutdown, initialization, they are the examples of cohesion is logical cohesion. Now what do you mean by logical cohesion? If the set of functions that are in your modules are logically related to each other, but they are not necessarily performing the same activity. Let us take again a real life example. For example, the activities like go by train, go by plane, go by boat, or go by scooter, right? So they all are activities which are related to some category, that is transportation from one place to another. But will a person actually go by train, plane at once? No. So they are not related to each other at the same time in the same sequence, right? Still they are put in a particular module, that is known as logical cohesion. So if you have a module in which you have set of activities which are belonging to a particular category, but you have a module in which you have functions which are logically related to each other, but they necessarily don't need to be put in the same module, then you can say that your module possess or consists of logical cohesion. For example, if you are keeping all the input and output handlings, for example keyboard input, mouse input handling events in a same module, then that sort of module is known as logically cohesive. And the last type of cohesion is coincidental cohesion. Now what do you mean by coincidental cohesion? Coincidental cohesion, it means that you have not thought about the design process, you are told that your module should be cohesive, you are not aware about what is cohesion, and unrelated items are put together in a module, then you can say that that is known as coincidental cohesion. For example, you take your dog to a walk, you are baking a cake, and you are watching TV. These are the three set of activities which are totally unrelated to each other, yet you are putting it in a one module, then that sort of cohesion is known as coincidental cohesion, right? So in software industry, if you are developing a module which consists of totally unrelated activities like printing a record, getting the input of customer, and validating an input. So these three are activities which are totally unrelated to each other, yet you have put them into a module just to divide it into the module, right? That sort of cohesion is known as coincidental cohesion. Now what is recommended? It is recommended that the sequence of cohesion in your software should be from low to high. It means coincidental cohesion should be minimum in your software, whereas functional cohesion should be maximum in your software, right? Now let us study the classification of coupling, and in coupling the first coupling is content coupling. Now what do you mean by content coupling? We know that what do you mean by coupling. Coupling, it means if there are two modules which are different, and if there is some sort of data exchange between the modules, that means one module is dependent on another module, then you can say that there is coupling between the modules. If there is one module which can access the private data of another module, it can change the data of another module, then you can say that they are exhibiting content coupling. For example, you have friends class in C++ which can access the private members of another class, right? So that is an example of content coupling. The next type of coupling is common coupling. Now what do you mean by common coupling? If you have two modules which share the same global data, so they are accessing the same global data, that is they are accessing the common data, then you can say that both of the modules are exhibiting common coupling. Now if there is a change in that global data, that will affect both the modules because they are accessing the shared data, right? The next type of coupling is known as control coupling. Now what do you mean by control coupling? Control coupling, it means when you have for example, if you have set flag in one of the module or function, and that flag is basically changing the execution of another function. Okay, so if there is an if condition, and if you are based on that if condition, you are accessing the data from another function, and based on that function and if condition, if you are changing the process or the steps of execution of current function, then it means you are changing the control of the second function or module. Such type of coupling or interdependency is known as control coupling. The next type of coupling is known as stamp coupling. Now, what do you mean by stamp coupling? If you have two modules and if you are passing the whole data structure from one module to another module, right? For example, in C you have structure or array. If you are passing array or structure in argument, then that sort of coupling or interdependency is known as stamp coupling. And the last type of coupling is data coupling. What do you mean by data coupling? Data coupling is a simple type of coupling in which you are passing data from one module to another module in argument. For example, if you have declared a variable, integer, float, character, whatever, and you are passing it as an argument in another function, that sort of interdependency is known as data coupling. Now, we know that if you want to produce good quality software, we must have high cohesion and low coupling, but it is inevitable to totally discard the coupling. So, which type of coupling is recommended and which type of coupling is not recommended? Yes, so data coupling may be used because it is inevitable that you will not pass the data from one module to another module, right? So, data coupling may be used in your software, but content coupling should not be used. So, the severity of coupling from low to high is from data coupling to content coupling, where if you are using content coupling, it means that you are accessing the private data of another module and you are able to change that private data of another module, then that sort of interdependency is very bad. Instead, if you are only passing the data, then it's okay, right? So, this was all about classification of coupling, and this was all about today's lecture. Thank you.